Hello, I'm Oleg, the art rat. This is my voice. It's baffling. Absolutely bonkers, ain't it? I know. A lot of people have asked me about my process, especially for lighting, so I decided to share the steps I took to create these scenes from my PNV, The Fall. I created the thumbnails on a separate canvas first that had the rest of the shots lined up in order. Then I took a picture of the one I wanted to work on, cropped it, and imported it into a new canvas that fit the quality and screen ratio that matched the rest of the project. For this one, I used a canvas size of 19.2 by 10.8 inches, or 5,760 by 3,240 pixels, which, as I look at it now, I realize how absolutely massive that is. I knew I didn't want it to be the basic 1920 by 1080 that YouTube uses because I was going to zoom in on the images and needed them to not lose quality. My next step was to add a bit more to the thumbnail to help me grasp my idea without jumping straight into the illustration. A technique I've began to use a lot has helped me tremendously, which is finding several art pieces and collaging them into one to use as a beginning reference. I'll add lighting or change the hues to my preference. This can help with deciding colors for later in the overall composition. Once I blocked everything out, I quickly jumped into a more simple piece that correlated to the other one, mainly because I was trying to mentally prepare myself for the more daunting panels. And I used cell shading relatively simpler lighting since the image was smaller and wouldn't be displayed for too long. But then the time came for the bigger piece, and I began by sketching out my characters, Oleg and Wero, who would be below. I pulled up references of their outfits from previous panels, color dropping directly from my base. I like to copy the flat color later and clip mask it to my liner and set it to multiply so it gives it more color immediately. Every time I go into the clip mask layer and clean up some parts so the liner is colored, or erase the parts that I actually want to be black or darker. And then I merge it down. Now it's subtle at first, but it makes a big difference. I duplicate the liner and change the blend mode to overlay, sometimes modifying the saturation and brightness to be more dull and dark, and use Gaussian blur to make the liner appear softer. I'll then lower the opacity to around 50%. Here I quickly blurred out my original figure so I can use the new one while keeping the rough background as I begin to plot out the shadows. I like to group and copy my flats in line art to merge them to one layer. First, I'll make another overlay and multiply with the colors of the background to help the character's flats blend into the atmosphere. For these shadows, I took a dull blue color, set a layer to multiply, and clip masked it to my character. The brushes I use for this sometimes vary, but for this one I worked with the studio pen, the same one I used to color in the flats. To create some bounce light from below, I took a very pale yellow and set a new layer to color dodge, using the Nico Rule brush to paint it in. Then I'll select the shadow layer, invert the selection, add a new layer, and drop in a warmer color that I set to hard light at around 35%. Over that, I'll make more sharp lights with the yellow or red that I set to add, while lowering the opacity again. I like to make the add layer blurred after duplicating it, and then setting it to color dodge. It helps sharpen the light. I do the same thing with the multiply layer to make it just softer around the edges too. And to help bring in some more color, I'll take red and paint it in with the soft airbrush around where the light meets shadow. Then comes my favorite part of the process, refining. Heck yeah. Because now I don't have to worry about color so much or the overall composition. I just get to tone in on all the little details and have a good little time cleaning everything up. It just makes me so happy, and it's so satisfying when you turn that layer on off again, and it's just, you could see the difference and how better it is. Hopefully better it is. It's just, it's so nice. It's so perfect. And to do this, I'll take all my layers, merge them into one that's a copy. There I will begin, usually with my modified HB pencil or watercolor brush, to clean up and add bigger chunks of the lighting or shadow so it flows more evenly and gives it greater definition. Since I used an overlay to adjust the original colors to fit the background, I decided color correct and change back the pants to something less saturated and less green, then the shirt by making it more white too. I'll use blend mode's hue or color to help with this, but you can also just use the color adjustments found from the top left. Then it came time for the background.
Why?
I blurred the image I had so only the colors were left, and I wanted to start with the small foreground, sketching out blades of grass that Alec was jumping off from. Then I painted in 2 pieces of land on the sides, correcting as I went, and began the notorious job of painting in the rest of the blades of grass. In order to not cause my hands want to strangle myself, I did the only main chunk in the front and duplicated the layers so I could add it around and create the little grassland beyond. After that, I used Multiply and created the sunlight patches on the grass, signifying the place where my second character would be. With a leafage brush from Procreate, I added some plants and blurred them to give in some more detail. I wanted little pools of water stretching between the grass, so I began to paint those in as well, pulling in the grass blades to fit around it more naturally while adding the reflections in the water. And it was that moment too that I realized I'd never actually painted water before, but I guess it turned out alright. Using the same process as before, I drew in my second character while trying to put him in a perspective as he looked up. On a layer on top of that, I brought out the grass to stand out in front of him and created a shadow behind. I added a blur behind him, set to add, to help him pop out from the background, same as I did the other one. With it all basically completed, I began adjusting the background, adding in more of a spotlight, sharpening the shadows and colors. To add a little life to the background, I blobbed in some vague irrelevant characters who are creatures I created for the story called Zen, and sprinkled them throughout the background. At last! I like to add an overlay of noise and make it primarily noticeable where the background is more blurred. It helps give texture when sometimes I think digital art can be too flat. And for the second piece, I followed the exact process as it follows the previous one in my PNV. So, I'll just let you guys enjoy this speed paint now. Hope this was helpful because all of you have been asking me for way too long and I'm so sorry that it took this many days to finally get it done. I do plan on making more speed paints, and I'm doing ones where I actually screen record while I'm painting, so you can actually see me using my layers and all the other settings while I'm drawing. I really do appreciate all you guys supporting me and being so nice about everything right now. Honestly, it's kind of absurd. You need to be mean to me for once. I want the comments to be roaring with just absolute chaos. That would be fantastic. So I hope this could be a gift to you as a thanks. Yeah. Enjoy.
Wow.